Anthony Joffe is the chairman of Sterling Trustees, LLC. He oversees Sterling's vision and mission. He has over 15 years of trust industry operating experience and has led to the growth of Sterling to over $10 billion of assets under administration. Anthony is a co-founder and board member of Wealth Hub, a software application built on Salesforce to streamline trust administration. Anthony is also the co-founder and former president of the South Dakota Trust Association, which is created to represent the South Dakota trust industry. Prior to joining Sterling, Anthony spent 15 years in the financial services industry in various roles, including president of a Pennsylvania chartered trust company.
You are listening to Wealthy Advisor Mindset Podcast, a show dedicated to helping financial advisors grow their AUM while enjoying a great quality of life by creating a high-performance mindset. Guiding you on this podcast is none other than Nina Cook, a seasoned mindset coach who has worked with hundreds of business owners over the last decade to dissolve all their self-sabotaging behaviors and habits to achieve their business goals so they can have a much bigger impact and make much more money. Throughout the show, we'll deliver actionable strategies to grow your practice more easily and quickly, while revealing the incredible possibilities that emerge when you tap into your best self. Ready for a breakthrough that amplifies your impact and profits? Let's dive in.
Great to have you here. You have a wealth of experience within the industry. You've seen, financial experts, some who have prospered and built wonderful, successful businesses, and others who haven't achieved everything they want to achieve. So we're going to be talking about why that happens and how financial advisors, when they get stuck, they can get past that space that they're stuck in. But first, I'd love to know a little bit about your journey, and could you share how you've come to be doing what you've done and how you've built your success and how mindset has played a role in that?
Yeah. Well, I started life out in the, accounting industry. I'm a CPA, worked for the Big Six for a couple of years, and then spent about 15 years in investment banking. And really, end of '07, as the market was going to hell in a handbasket, my dad was a practicing trust and estates attorney, had the idea to start a Pennsylvania charter trust company, and asked me if I'd like to join him to sort of get it off the ground. And, seemed like a good idea. Investment banking was probably going to disappear for 3-4 years because of the financial meltdown, and to get into a more recurring revenue business seemed like a really good idea. The opportunity to work with my dad as well was also pretty exciting, and we got this thing off the ground, and here we are 17 years later. And it's I think running your own business is exciting. It has tons of challenges. It's never sort of a straight line up. It's a bunch of zigs and zags. The downward zags, and be able to just keep the momentum going forward.
So what was the main challenge for you as you started this whole new venture? And your mindset at the time that you started this, were you like, yeah, I know this is going to succeed, or were you hesitant about it? What was your thought process at that time?
That's a good question. I was excited about getting into an entrepreneurial venture. I mean, in my investment banking days, I've helped a lot of small entrepreneurial companies raise money and get them off the ground, and sort of had a bird's eye view of sort of what it took to do that. And, the opportunity to do that myself, was exciting. So I think that's what, sort of intrigued me the most. What I didn't expect was, it's just not a straight line up. I mean, there's just so many things that can go wrong, and so many issues you got to deal with on a day-to-day basis, operating the business, whether it's dealing with employees, dealing with clients. I mean, there's always something that's breaking or going wrong. And I think it's how you deal with that adversity and get over it and sort of keep plowing forward that I think enables businesses to be successful.
Well, so looking at financial advisors and the entrepreneurs who are running their own businesses, what do you see as one of the biggest challenges they face in terms of growth? And how would you connect that to their mindset and the part that plays in their feeling stuck?
Yeah. I would say the one thing about the financial services industry, particularly wealth management, investment advisors, is, they get paid on an assets under management base fee. And, you know, once you become somewhat successful, there's no huge incentive to keep growing. I mean, you can sort of get fat and happy on the fees that you're making, and there's really not a whole lot of incentive to go out and get new clients because you've got this recurring revenue stream. And so I think it takes somebody that has an entrepreneurial mindset and is willing to move past that, is not afraid to grow and get bigger, and and the potential issues that come along with that. Do I need to hire an assistant or more assistants? How do I manage all of that, add more clients onto my book of business?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know from my own personal experience and from my clients' experience, it's really important to have a goal, be on purpose, feel motivated. How did you find your motivation? Because as you said, there's challenges all the time, there's overwhelm, so much stuff going on to deal with. And you can get bogged down in all of this, can't you? And just feel you're treading water some of the time. So how do you keep that fire going, that motivation to grow?
Well, I guess obviously the biggest is you got to feed your family and take care of your kids and pay for college and all those sorts of things. So that's always on the back of your mind. And then obviously you want to retire one day and get to enjoy life. So I think that's probably the biggest motivator for me. But you also want to, when you're competing against other peers in your group, I mean, you want to stand out and be the most successful or sort of the known quantity within your target market and whatnot. So it gets easier to grow over time. So I think that motivates me as well, as trying to grow faster than my competitors or be bigger than my competitors, so that the valuation of the business continues to increase.
Yeah, no, I get that. So how can people stand out in their industry? Because some financial advisors, obviously many of them will niche into just certain areas of expertise. And if they're selling similar products, maybe they're charging similar fees, how do you stand out from the crowd, as it were?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think within the wealth management business, as you rightly pointed out, there's a lot of competitors. You're starting to see a lot of fee compression as technology has sort of come to bear. Fees are sort of going into the ground. The question is, how do you stand out? And I think it's really sort of two things. One is service, going above and beyond to service your clients. The other big piece is really technology. You've got to make yourself as efficient as possible so that you can take on more clients, better service your existing clients. If you're having to deal with bad technology and that's inefficient and taking up time, that's the only thing you really have to sell if you're in an industry that's oversaturated with advisors and with fee compression as well. Time is really the only asset you have left to sell.
Yeah. And for those who are comfortable, they can feed their family, send their kids to a decent school and all the rest of it, but they know there's more for them, but they just don't know how to get there. How do they make that next step up, if you like? And I'm not just talking just about more profits. It's all about having great satisfaction in what you do, as you said, serving your clients at a higher level, transforming their lives. How do they find that motivation to push themselves out their comfort zone and do more and think in a bigger way?
Right. Well, I think one of the biggest things is sort of goal setting and writing down what your goals are at the beginning of the year. I think the other thing that, particularly for me, where I'm sort of wearing multiple hats, one of the things you really have to focus on is, listen, you have to dedicate a certain amount of time each day to sales and marketing to make sure that you've got a continuous flow of leads coming in, whether that's making cold calls or reaching out to people or networking. If you don't dedicate a certain amount of time, whether it's each day or a certain amount of hours per week, that's the only way you can sort of consistently sort of grow over time. I think if you start ignoring that, then things can go sideways and potentially get sidetracked from the mission that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and that's the key area, isn't it? Doing the outreach, the follow-up, all of that stuff, which some people will find very, very difficult to do, and they have a lot of resistance to doing. this stuff because they don't want to come across as salesy or pushy or desperate or needy. And then they get to the stage where they think, well, I haven't got any leads in the pipeline. What am I going to do? And then it feels panicky. Have you ever suffered with resistance to doing this stuff, or has it come easily to you?
No, it's hard. I'm sort of a shy introvert. And, I sort of have gotten better at it during my investment banking days. When you're sort of reaching out to investors and trying to raise money, you start to learn those skills of what you need to do to make those connections. And I think today, listen, with email and texting, for people that are scared to pick up the phone, if you write a good email or good text, people will respond back. So I guess it's a chicken way of doing lead management, or it's like any skill. The more you do it, the better you get at it. So that's why I think put it on your calendar, like from 9 to 10 every morning. That's my focus. Who can I touch or reach out to or reconnect with? Spend an hour doing that. I think if you see that on your calendar every day, it'll motivate you. If you don't have any sort of particular to make you do it, sometimes you ignore it and focus on something else that isn't revenue generating.
Yeah, that is really great advice. I watched a talk by Earl Nightingale, who was a great personal development teacher. And he said, all he loved to do was study very successful people and figure out what they did that less successful people weren't doing. He said, really, the difference lies in very successful people are willing to do the stuff that less successful people don't want to do. We all want more, but many of us aren't willing to do what it takes to have more. The successful person will do those things which feel boring, which feel difficult, uncomfortable, and they'll build habits around those. This is the key area, isn't it? Outreach. Because they have such a burning desire that they'll do whatever it takes, however uncomfortable it is, to reach that goal. And so it is having a goal which absolutely lights you up and you think, whatever it takes, I'm going to have it. But it's also suffering the hardship of creating that new habit, however much you don't want to do it. And the funny thing with habits is at the beginning, it feels difficult or a real stretch and you really don't want to approach people and ask them for business. But as with any habit, after a while, you start getting more comfortable with it because it becomes second nature to you and it doesn't feel like a habit. And by that time, you're already seeing the fruits of that habit. So you're not going to stop because you're thinking, well, this is bringing me in all these great leads. It's just getting started, isn't it? That's often the hardest bit.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think what's it, Malcolm Gladwell says, I think you have to do something for 10,000 hours to master it. So, when it comes to sales and marketing, it's a lot of time and effort. But if you start breaking it down into smaller little bite-sized bits, and you got to have that goal and then put it on your calendar, and whatever method you need in terms of whether you're using Excel or some sort of CRM to keep track of all your contacts and your leads and manage that over time, you'll start to see what system works best for you. And hopefully that starts to turn into new business. If you are reaching out to the right referral sources and you service them really well, you don't need a whole lot of referrals to be successful. If you just take care of the ones that refer you the most business, if you take care of them, it just becomes a continuous cycle going forward.
Successful as you want to be is really based on repetition. It's repeating certain actions that are going to get you the results and just focusing on those key things. And it can feel boring to, say, well, tomorrow I've got to do outreach for the first hour of my day. I don't want to do it. And you need to drag yourself to the desk and do it. But it is about repetition. Anything you want to master, be it the guitar or, any hobby, any skill, you've got to keep doing it and keep doing it until you get better and better. And as you keep doing it, you start getting insights. Well, perhaps I can just, change this bit of it. That might make a difference. Or I can do this. But it's only by getting into the thick of that activity, you can start thinking about ways how you could do it better and better. And it gets easier and easier doing it.
Yeah.
So how have you used your mindset to keep on getting to new stages of growth? How do you do that when you get comfortable in a particular area or you think, well, things are going pretty well at the moment? What is it that drives you upwards and onwards?
Yeah, I guess I'm always trying to do new things and try new avenues in terms of generating leads. So, one of the things that we're actually doing while I'm on the call today is there opportunities within the podcast world and getting our story out to generate new business opportunities. And time will tell. I don't know what the reaction is going to be. And so I guess I'm not afraid to sort of try new things to help new business, whether it's podcasting or doing webinars, or I want to try it all to see what the most effective is. Unfortunately, in business and listen, I think the same in the wealth management business, it's all relationship driven. There's no substitute for the hand-to-hand combat of having a lunch with somebody or meeting them face to face, or whether it's a Zoom call now. Instead, I think that is probably the best way to generate new business. But in terms of potentially continuing to feed that pipeline, I think there's lots of different things that you can be doing, whether it's writing, doing white papers, podcasts, webinars, LinkedIn advertising, Google AdWords. I mean, there's lots of things that you should be experimenting and trying to see what type of response you get. And if you have to tailor your message or change and tweak things and experiment with it, I think that's really sort of the fascinating thing of, particularly around marketing, is what sort of sets off a bell in somebody's head that, yeah, I need to pick up the phone and call Sterling Trustees to find out more.
So you're not afraid to try new things out?
No, I think that's key. And I think as technology gets better and whatnot, I think it becomes easier and you can do lots of stuff. So like artificial intelligence now, I think is a really interesting opportunity. So we've just started using it recently for clients that come to our website and want to chat with us. And we've got an AI chatbot that will talk with interested prospects. And it's a great way to connect with people, especially off hours when you don't have employees that can man a chat function at work. You've got somebody that can now do this 24 hours a day and get answers, or even just collect an email address so that you can follow back up. It's just, that's just a new way of, getting a lead.
Yeah, so you're embracing new things. What's your attitude towards failing? Or when, when something, you try something, it doesn't work out. So what's your attitude towards failing? And how do you get over setbacks?
Yeah. Yeah. No, listen, I think when you're running your own business, you've got to be prepared to fail. If you can't deal with the fallout of failing, I think you'll get very far running your own business. It happens, whether a bad hiring decision and you've got to deal with that, or you've got a client that was irate or wants to leave you, or HR issues. There's so many things that can go off the rails that can bring you down if you're not resilient and can't get over it quickly. Running your own businesses is not going to be for you. I mean, you're just better off collecting a paycheck and be able to go home on the weekends and not have to worry about work. I think the difference when you're running your own business, I mean, you're on 24/7. There's just really no way to sort of shut it down if you want to be successful, for sure. That's the case. I couldn't take a week off and not check my emails. I probably could, but I don't know whether it's the anxiety of not checking or the potential fallout from clients being like, well, what the hell? It takes you 6 days to respond back to an email. I wouldn't be able to handle that. So I think there's definitely a mindset around that.
How do you handle setbacks?
I just try to focus on it's going to happen, and it's not like it's going to kill the business. You just have to have the mindset you're going to deal with it and look to the future. I think the most important thing is just learn from the failures so that it doesn't happen again. I think that's the key. If you don't learn from your mistakes, you're bound to repeat them. Learn from those mistakes. Make sure you have policies and procedures in place to make sure that you don't repeat them, and make sure your employees understand what those policies and procedures are and are aware of them so that they in turn don't get me into trouble. So it's sort of this continuous inner process of continuous improvement, I think, is really key.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the biggest lesson that life has taught you so far?
Well, I think in running a business, what I've learned is you really need a good team around you. As you grow, it's impossible for you to do everything yourself. You really have to delegate. And I think the key around that is really just hiring people that are smarter than you, that can do things better than you, so that you can rely on them to get things done. If you don't have that ability to delegate, I think your ability to grow really suffers. I mean, there's only so much one human being can do. in terms of growing a business. It really takes a team pulling on all oars to be able to do it. And, if you can't delegate, you're going to have issues. And I think the other key is really making sure obviously having a good team around you, but making sure that within that team, everybody's sort of pulling on the same oar. I mean, if you've got one employee that is going sideways or is maybe infecting the rest of the team, don't be afraid to get rid of them and bring somebody else in that will do the job correctly, because you can really sort of sometimes getting rid of employees, sometimes it's hard because you've got to train somebody else up. In our business, you're going to take over clients and understand what their issues and history is. So it's a big task, and sometimes you're afraid to deal with it. But on the other hand, you've got an employee that potentially is infecting your business, just not enabling you to run it 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those financial advisors who are listening in and they're thinking, well, it's too costly to hire a new team member, and I'm not sure if I've got enough growth to be able to justify it, etc. What would you say to them who are resistant to expanding their team?
Yeah, we had a very similar situation. We had an employee, a longtime employee, who was just not a team player. I've been thinking about this decision for probably the last 6 months and finally pulled the trigger. The first week or two, getting the new employee up to speed was like drinking out of a fire hose, but now it's smoothed out and it's the best thing we ever did. I can't believe I didn't do it sooner. It has improved the morale of the company. Life for me just much easier. So, things are hard, if life is hard and running a business is hard. And if you can't make hard decisions, again, I think you're better off just collecting a paycheck and not running your own business.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a certain, we can overthink things and talk ourselves out of it. There's always a good logical reason not to take a risk in life.
Yeah.
But that's where I think knowing what you want in life is really important, because that helps you to overcome those moments of, when you wobble and doubt yourself and all the rest of it. If you have a very clear goal, that will just keep you moving forward and helping you to make the right decision, even though it feels scary at the moment. And sometimes when it feels scary, it's good because there's growth on the other side of that decision, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's right. And I think it sort of goes back to goal setting and, and then breaking your goals down into little chunky pieces that doesn't seem so overwhelming. And if you can just start accomplishing one little task towards that goal every day, it just makes it easier to get to where you want to be at the end of the year versus I want to increase sales $500,000 next year. I mean, that's a great goal, but how do you do it? And you've got to reverse engineer that into little bite-sized chunks. All right, I need, just make up numbers, 500 new leads to be able to do that. Got to convert 50% of those new leads into opportunities and another 50% of those opportunities into sales. How do I start creating those 500 leads, and what processes should I be doing to make sure the conversion is correct? And if you do it in those little bite-sized chunks, I think at the end of the year, you'll come out ahead.
And also, whatever goal you set, have an emotional connection to it. Would that enable you to do? Would you buy a bigger house? Would you take your family on an incredible holiday? Would you take some time off? What does it look like on the other side of having that extra money? What you can do with that? How are you going to improve the quality of yours and your loved ones' lives? Yeah. Paint those pictures in your head, get really involved in that goal. Yeah. And because that's what will keep you going on those days when you really don't want to do it.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think also seeing those goals, whether you write it down on a piece of paper and you stick it to your computer or whatnot.
Yes.
Looking at that every day was also helpful to, getting you over the hump.
Yes. I have a goal card, which I keep by my desk, by my bed and everywhere. I look at it every day. I write it out every day. I think about it every day. And it just feels so normal to me to have all of this that it's just like, it's just an expectation that I have it. Wonderful. How can our listeners find out more about you and the great work that you're doing?
Sure. I mean, you can go to our website, which is www.sterlingtrustees.com, or reach out to me directly. I can be reached at 610-234-0626, or feel free to send me an email. My email address is ajoffe, it's AJOFFE @sterlingtrustees.com.
Wonderful. So we'd encourage everyone who's listening to go and check out Anthony's website. Anthony, thank you so much for being here. It's been amazing talking to you, and thank you for all the value you brought today. For everyone who's been listening, thank you so much for your company. Until next time, bye-bye for now.
I hope you enjoyed the episode today on the Wealthy Advisor Mindset. Make sure to hit subscribe on your chosen platform to get notifications on upcoming episodes. If this episode made you think of someone who you think would benefit from listening to it, then go ahead, take a screenshot, and share this episode with them, or post it on your social media to share with your friends and colleagues. You can catch the show notes for this episode and any mentioned links in the description. If you are a financial advisor who is struggling to grow your AUM and profits while creating a great work-life balance, and you know it's because your mindset is stopping you, or you have a specific challenge in mind that you would love Nina's feedback on, go to chatwithnina.org and grab a time that works best for you. We'd love to see if we can help you. Once again, it's chatwithnina.org. We will see you in the next episode.